folks, what you're about to get to see is us change the gear case seal and the motor oil seal, which is behind the flywheel on this 9500. We have copied or cut this video together from about 3 different times of doing it. We pulled it once to do the gear case, we pulled it the second time to do the motor seal, and we pulled it the third time to do the motor seal again because we did it wrong the first time. And we're eventually going to pull it the fourth time to change the coupler between the gear case and the motor. Our coupler has a bad rivet, and what happened was whoever owned the combine before us had changed the gear case seal, and they let a bolt on the flywheel backed out and hit a rivet on the coupler and made a pretty good divot in it. And our coupler does show some wear in the rubber, so we found another one and we're gonna change it. But I don't know if we'll change it in the middle of harvest or if we will wait till this winter. So it's this video spliced together. You'll notice that we're wearing different clothes throughout it. It's because it's different times we did it. And I'll throw a little disclaimer in there that we are not professional mechanics, amateurs at best, and we are just doing this and hope that it will help somebody if they have a gear case leak or a motor oil leak behind the flywheel. So if they can't get somebody to come out and do it, they can kind of have a direction on how to do it themselves. You know, good luck doing it, and be safe, y'all. Welcome back to Mid-10, y'all. So this morning we was gonna service the combine. It rained over the weekend. We was just gonna service stuff and you'll get her ready to run tomorrow. But we noticed that we're leaking a little bit of motor oil out of the gear case, which means the motor oil seal on the motor side is bad. And the only thing that I found online when we changed the gear case, and I found this after we changed it, somebody in an old style chat forum, I think it was from like 2004, 2005. They recommended that when you change the gear case seal, that you change the engine motor oil seal also. Well, we didn't, so we're about to pull it again. But good news is you're gonna get to see how to pull it. But just want to throw that in there. That way, y'all kind of know what you need. Oh, yeah, good hammer. Well, not a hammer per se, but not a metal hammer, but a dead blow hammer, a rubber dead blow hammer. That way, if you had to use it to tap the muffler off, don't want to use a metal hammer on it because I was afraid to dent the muffler. Oh, you also need an oil filter wrench. But oh yeah, and some extensions, because the one 29mm bolt that's down here, you can't get an impact in this area, but you can go on this side and reach underneath it. If you have enough extensions, you can do that. You can do it all with wrenches and sockets, but we do have a couple of cordless impacts that make it a lot handier. This one up here, it's a high torque one. I think it's 1,500 pounds braking force. We got another one down here. It's I think it's about 800. So we got a couple different ones to do a couple different things with, but they're handier, especially we're on this other farm where we don't have the big air compressor at. So yeah, there's a rundown on your tools. Hope it helps you out. That way you can kind of get your things together before you get up on top of the combine. I know it's aggravating having to climb up and down the stairs a bunch of times to get stuff, so that should help you out a little bit. So I'm starting down here on the side of the combine. I have loosened my chopper bolt up with these bolts, loosened them all up. I pulled the cover off my grain tank auger drives. I've got these belts loose. I've got all the belts out up here. I got the shield off. I'm gonna pull this belt. I have also taken the oil drain bolt loose from right here. There's a mount bolt right here I've taken loose. On this side, also on the other side of the motor, I've taken this hose clamp off. That way the hose can be pushed down. I've taken my hydrostatic drive control off. This is my hydrostatic transmission drive right here. I've taken it off and I've let it just dangle right down here. Got a magnetic tray set with some bolts in it. I put most bolts back in their holes that I took out, like these. I put them all back in these guards when I took them out. So on the side here, all I gotta do is pull these belts off. And then we'll be ready to go on top, and we're going to pull the batteries, which are right here. You can see the batteries. We're going to pull them, set them out of the way. That way when everything's apart, there's no chance of somebody accidentally starting the combine. We don't need that especially once we break the engine open. Then we got to take these bolts right here. There's one here, one on the other side, and there's also two on the opposite side of the gear case. They mount it down. There's 4 big bolts. I think you can see it right way up here. One bolt here, one bolt above it, behind this filter. And then there's 2 bolts on the other side that bolt the gear case to the engine. And then there will be 4 bolts in the dust cover. Well, I call it a dust cover. I'm not exactly sure what you'd call it on this engine. But there's 4 bolts in it to pull. Then it will be loose. I have some 3-inch C-channel to slide in here to extend my track out this way. And I'll show y'all that once we get it in there. That way we should be able to take the gear case right here and just slide it back this way. We also have the other loader tractor here, the 4-wheel drive one. This loader is a little bit stronger and the tractor sits taller, so if you need it, we can always reach over the edge of the combine and pull it. But one thing that you want to do before you start, your auger right here, go ahead and extend your auger out, extend the auger out. That way, if you need it out of the way, it is out of the way up here, because your gear case sits right about there. You'll have to pull, well no, actually, sits right here. You have to pull this panel off, the exhaust off on the other side. That way, if you do need to get a loader up there, it'll already be out of the way. So I'm gonna get to pulling more bolts out, and we get another step going or so, I'll show you where we're at. Until then, so now we're up on top of the combine. I'm about to pull these batteries. Take this hydraulic filter off. Jesse's over in the grain tank. I'll show you what he's doing. So he has taken, as you can see, the grain tank motor or engine bay cover off. He's also working on pulling the drive shaft or the power shaft. You gotta take that cover off. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4. Has 8 13mm bolts in it. And once you pull it off, you unbolt the power shaft from the cab side, which is over here. And there's 4 10mm star head bolts you gotta pull. And then slip couplers back here. You can kind of see it right in that area. It'll slip right off. We recommend when you pull it off to take some tape, zip ties, string or something, wrap around the U-joint cap so you don't lose the needle bearings in it. And when he gets that off, we'll show you how we do that. So yeah, we're gonna take some more stuff off. We'll get back with you. We'll show you the progress we made so far. We have removed the muffler. rotated our elbow up. We're taking off this side panel. It's sitting back here on the back muffler side panel. There's 4 bolts to hold the muffler to this side panel. There's 4 bolts, 2 in each corner to hold the side panel on. I've taken the filter off, and since it's a new filter, I got it sitting over here, covered up with tape on it. And Jesse, he'll show you the drive shaft. So the drive shaft, we have to set back out of the way. We wrapped it with tape, electrical tape that comes off easy. It basically holds these caps on there because we don't want to drop the cap and lose all needle bearings, because the bearings, the universal joint is still good. We've also, on these plugins, we have numbered them. Took some Scotch tape, wrote numbers on them on each side, so we've got to unplug all these. And I had some one color zip tie, so I zip tied this one. Then I tape and numbered the rest of them so we know which ones go. So I have to unplug them. We'll have to take, I think we take this hydraulic line loose. We take this one off. I think we have to take this one right here off also. And then we have to take the filter mount there, filter holder right here, take it off. So we get that stuff off, and we need to take the mounting bolts for the gear case off the rail. Then we can slide our C-channel extensions in. So we're going to take some more stuff off, then we'll show you what we've done. So, all right, folks. If you can't tell, I'm sitting out on the edge of the combine. But I got my legs in the grain, one leg in the grain tank, one not. If you're gonna do this, sit on the edge like this. Try to be careful. So what we've done, there's my filter holder. We've unbolted the filter holder, which bolts in right here. Unbolted that. Took this hydraulic liner here loose. We took these 2 right here, this one right here off. We're about to take this one off. We could leave this one on. We have undid our wiring harness, which, like I say before, is labeled. Like I'll show you this, and it says number 1. So on the other side of the wiring harness, it has another piece of Scotch tape that says number 1. We've pulled the 4 big bolts, one here, one right here. Oh, there it is. One down there, one on this side. We have taken out the 4 cross member bolts for the gear case. There's 2 right here. There's 2 right over here. We've pulled out the 4 bolts in the back of the dustpan. We've also taken the ether line off right here. We don't use ether on this, but we took it off anyways because it's the ether can holder is bolted to the dust cover, which is going to come loose. We unbolted it, took it out of the line holder right here, just so it sets free and won't break. So that's where we're at right now. Oh yeah, on the muffler, so here's the exhaust clamp. I just undid it, slid it down. Then the turbo clamp, I just loosened it up so it turns. You just got to remember to put all that back and tighten it up good when you put it back on. And another thing is, on all these O-rings, on all the hydraulic lines, they're flat fittings with O-rings right here inside them, as you can see. Be careful. Those are John Deere O-rings. You cannot get an aftermarket O-ring to fit it. They're specially made. So I have bought about 4 extra of all these O-rings just in case we lose one when we're taking it apart, putting it back together. And I'll show you the other end. So if you see the other end of the line, right there, it's just a flat fitting. So you got to be careful with your hydraulic line O-rings. Make sure you don't lose them. And yeah, we're about to slide our rails in. We're going to take this last hydraulic hose off, slide our rails in, and then we'll be ready to start separating the motor from the gear case. Until then, one other thing, your starter relay right here, make sure you unbolt it with these 2 bolts, and I just put the bolts back where they were supposed to go so I don't lose them, because the wires ain't long enough to stretch out, so it'll just sit out of the way. Your starter here, you do not have to take that off. It's fine sitting like it is. For now, for doing the gear case seal, what we're doing is the engine seal on the other side of the gear case, but we're gonna go ahead and check the gear case seal too, just to see if it didn't crap out on us. May have, may not have. We're gonna find out here in just a minute. So when we get back into stuff, I'll get back with you then. All right, we got all the hoses off, all the bolts out, all the wires disconnected, filters removed where we need to. So we're about to slide the rails in, which are these right here. Piece of 3-inch C-channel. So it's 3, the gap on the factory C-channel is 3 1/8. So this is 3 inches. And then we've added a 1/4 piece of flat stop to the top of it. Will make up for the 1/8, and then the 1/4 on top, that'll make the factory C-channel motor mount frame, whatever you want to call it, level with our extensions. So our extensions are going to be right about in this region, and they're going to come out right about into here. So when we slide that gear case out, it has extra room to sit on. And so we've made these to slide in. The one for the grain tank side is, what, how long is that?
38 inches. 38 inches with a 14-inch flat bar stock on it.
Yeah, 38. Then you got 14 inches of flat bar added to it.
The reason this one's shorter is because you have the pulleys in the way, so this is a shorter bar.
Yeah. And this one is 5 foot.
This one's 5 foot.
With a 2 foot. With a 2 foot
flat bar.
1/4-inch flat bar on it. We had to make the one shorter, like Jesse was saying, so we could get it stuck in there. It's a little bit tighter. And the first time we did this, we used a tractor. We used these plus a loader tractor to get the gear case slid back. We're thinking this time that we can just slide it back behind. If not, we do have a loader tractor just right over there in the shed that we can hook up to it and move back. So we're gonna get this stuck in. Once we get it stuck in and stationary, we'll show you what it looks like. So we'll get back with y'all in a minute. We got the rails slid in, so I'll show you what they look like. Get up just a little bit higher. So as you can see, right here's where the O and ends. So it's just a little extension. Comes out to the edge right here. And then the back one is shorter because it being right up against the grain tank, it's hard to get it stuck back, poked back up in there. But it's set up the same way. If y'all build these for it, I would recommend taking these edges and grinding them points off. That way you don't jab yourself in the head or nothing like that. But they're in there and they work. So what we're gonna do is get them clamped in real good and tight so they won't move. And then we'll get to pulling or separating the gear case from the motor. And when we do that, we'll show you what that looks like. All right, so we have our rails stationary. And I'm gonna show you one other thing you need to make sure is in a proper location. And that is this motor mount. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a slight gap between it and the frame here. That is because that does not support the motor when it is in its proper operating position, which is bolted to the gear case. That foot only supports the motor when you take the gear case off of it. So in normal support, the motor is this motor mount up here. And then it's also mounted with the gear case mount back here. So you got to make sure these two bolts right here are good and tight to make sure that your foot does not slide up and down. It is in a slot position, so it can be adjusted, but just make sure it's down and snugged up tight so it doesn't fall. If the motor does fall, you're gonna have to have something a lot heavier to pick it up and get it back in its proper position. So just make sure when y'all do this that the foot is secure. So we're gonna try to pry it apart. So yeah, we'll get back with you in a minute. All right, folks, we got the gear case separated from the motor. I'll show you how it looks. So as you can see, it's separated. Move that bolt. So down here, this right here is your gear case seal. So this yellow piece right here, and I'm touching with my knife, that is the seal. You pull out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, I think these are 10mm bolts. You pull these out, then you pop this cover right here off, and the seal just taps right off. And it's no big deal, just like any other seal. It take a small hammer and a little punch, just tap, 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 comes right out. Then you need to make sure that you scrape all the gasket off of both sides, off of inside this and right here. Scrape that off really good, then put your gasket back up there. So ours is not leaking, but what is leaking is this side, which will be the engine oil seal. And we did end up having to pull the loader over to give us a little boost. So we took 2 short nylon straps, wrapped around the back of the case, because it was dipping down a little bit, so we picked up level, and it just took some pry bars, pried it right apart. We also used a porta power to get it started. We used a porta power to gap it about a 1/2 inch, and then I was in the grain tank, my brother was on the other side of the motor, and we just took pry bars and pried it apart. And then, so right now it is sitting, I'll show you, it's sitting back here on our homemade rail. So that's why we made that rail. Here's a better view of it, out on the rail. We're gonna get into it now and change that seal. So you got a paper seal, and you got this gasket right here, this bag. There's the part number 4, the internal seal, and then there's the gasket part number. That's 2 you need, and luckily our dealer had it. I mean, this is a 466 motor, which are very common motors in Deere from, I think, the late 80s or early 80s till mid 2000s. So that's what you need. We're going to get these bolts off, and when we start changing the seal, we'll get back with you. Alright folks, we got back into it a little bit more. So I'll show you. So right here, this piece is your, we'll go clutch, but it is your coupler shaft for your gear case. So I'll point at it right here. That is your gear case coupler shaft coming through this, I guess, clutch pack, coupler case, whatever you want to call it. So it has 6 bolts in it. We took those 6 bolts out. We have set it back onto the gear case, and now we're about to take the flywheel loose. The flywheel right here has 6 bolts on the inside right around where the shaft goes, and the oil seal is on the back side, back in here, behind the flywheel. It is kind of a pain to get to, but I'm pretty sure we can do this without taking the gear case off the combine. It would probably be a lot easier if we took the gear case off, but we'd have to remove the entire side panel. Then there's another support piece to take off. Then you have to take off all the hydraulic hoses, and we're trying to do this with doing a minimal of a hydraulic hose removal. And I'm pretty sure that well, I'm pretty sure we can do it like this. Who knows? It might work, it might not. We're gonna find out. And we should be able to take the flywheel off right here without removing the starter. So you can see the starter wheels right here where it engages the flywheel. So once we pull these 6 bolts, we should be able to set the flywheel just a little bit sideways and pull it out through here, or at least take it off enough to set it over here to remove the 4 bolts that hold the oil seal on. And I don't know, well, I'm thinking we won't have to drain the motor oil, but we might. We'll let you know when we get into that part. So we're gonna get these other bolts off and the flywheel off, and then we'll get back with you. Alright folks, we got the flywheel off. I'll show you what that looks like. So the flywheel is over there. We have managed to get enough room, we rolled it that way and pulled it out of the way. We have taken the drive coupler off, which is right there. That's your drive coupler. The flywheel is held on by 6 19mm head bolts. Next step will be to pull these 6 bolts, pull those 6 bolts, scrape our seal off, scrape our paper seal off, then put this piece back on with the new paper, put new paper seal to put this back on, and then we have borrowed a specialty tool to push the seal back in, because the seal, this seal is not like normal seals. You don't put it on the back side of this, you put it on the front side. So a mechanic friend of ours let us borrow a specialty tool. He said if you don't have this tool, you can tap it on this way, but the tool is better. So we'll show you what that looks like when we get into it. We're going to pull this cleaned up, wipe up all our oil mess. As you can see, it was leaking a significant amount of oil, but we're about to get that part fixed. When we get to that, we'll show you that. Oh yeah, and one other thing, if you can see the gap right there, there's a metal brace that goes right in this little gap. That's 4 15mm head bolts. We took it out. That way it allowed for our support panel to flex more, so we could get a little more length on the gear case. And as you can see, we have our gear case kind of cocked sideways. We did have to take one big hydraulic line loose on the bottom to get it to cock sideways, and we went ahead and drained all the fluid out of the gear case and the main hydraulic tank right back here. We have those fluids caught in 2 separate buckets. It's new fluid. We have it marked on which one it goes into. That way we know which to put in which location. We have almost 10 gallons out of the main hydraulic tank, and we have almost 5 gallons out of the gear case. We'll put those back in once we got everything reassembled and all the hydraulic hoses attached. We'll put those back in, and then let it run, turn it off, let it sit for a little bit so the fluid goes back down, and then we'll know if we need to add any more fluid or take some out. So we'll get back to you here in a minute and show you what we're doing. So we popped our O-ring off, we got it off. Now before you get to scraping on this gasket, as you can see where my pinky's at, my hand goes inside the engine. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of these clean blue rags and just ease them along right in through here. So when we scrape this, we do not get extra junk inside the engine. So before you get to scraping, just make sure you put some rags or something here to catch the stuff. Or if you have a vacuum cleaner, bring your vacuum cleaner up here with you. Go ahead and turn it on and have it right beside your scraper as you're scraping, so you don't get junk down inside your motor. I got the paper gasket here on the ring. Got everything cleaned off, so I've take it. I lined it up with the holes, put some bolts in there, and bent the edge right here. That way you don't have to trim it off, that way it'll sit down in there. So the next step will be put a little RTV down on it and put this back on. Alright, I'm going to show you a shot of the tool. So this right here, it's got 2 Allen head bolts. They have it marked with a white indicator. That hole you put up right here on the dowel pin, and then you just tighten your 2 Allen bolts down really tight. Once you got them good and tight, then you just start screwing this nut right here down until this piece comes back out flush. And once you do that, you ain't got to put a whole lot of torque on it. Just turn it until it's good and snug, and that's all you got to do. And then the seal will look like it right there once it's back in. And it shouldn't leak, but you'll never know until you start the combine. So hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, hopefully it don't leak. So we'll show you the next step. So now we have the gear case bolted back to the motor. As you can see, the bolts are in. So what we did to bolt it up. The bottom bolt is a longer bolt. It's a 4-inch, about a 4.5 inch bolt. Top bolt's a 2-inch bolt, so we used the bottom 4-inch bolt to put it in the top hole to get it lined up. That way the dust shield right here would quit dropping off the alignment pins. Alignment pins right here. You can see it in there. So we used a big bolt to start it, and then I was in the grain tank. Jesse was on the engine base, or the engine platform side, and we just slowly took a wrench and slowly took a socket and just bolted the engine up. We did have to adjust the flywheel just a smidge to get it to line back up in the coupler, and we only had to do that because we had to unbolt the coupler from the flywheel. The first time we did it, there was no problem at all lining it back up because we didn't undo the coupler. But this time, like we stated before, we had to take the gear case off again due to the engine motor oil seal leaking. And yeah, I would recommend go ahead and changing that when you change the gear case seal. Because if you don't, you'll probably be like us and take about 3 days for it to go out and you're back into it again. So it doesn't take any longer to take it apart the first time, and to change those seals, it might add, what, about 20 minutes to the job, to change the engine oil seal while you're at it. So I'd recommend doing that. You ain't got to, but you know, well, like we said before, this is just amateur mechanic recommendations, so do it however you feel like. Well, we're gonna get back to putting lines on, and we'll let you know how progress goes. Well, folks, we got everything bolted back up. All the hydraulic hoses reattached, belts reattached. Put the batteries back on. She fired up and moves. Doesn't seem to have any odd or out of the ordinary vibrations. Sounds normal. Seems to function normal. So the last thing we're gonna do is get a little degreasing spray and spray down the motor area and just rinse it off. That way we can tell if there's any hydraulic leaks. We had a few leaks from taking hoses off, changing filters, but we got most of that wiped up. Now we just need to take a little degreasing spray, spray it down and wash it off. It'll be good. That way we can check to see if any leaks. So hope this helps. You know, and if any of y'all watch this and see something that would help somebody else do it, you know, drop a comment about it. If you see something that would make it easier, throw a comment down there. Any type of technique or anything to do this, don't be afraid to drop a comment to help other people out. So appreciate y'all watching this. Hope it helps you. If it does, it does. If it don't, it don't. But until the next one, you know, good Lord willing, catch you on the flip side.